Welcome to Building Fortunes Radio. Make sure you check us out at buildingfortunesradio.com. Along with our marketing partners, we're here to help our PM Marketing Network Lead customers build their businesses and make the world a better place. At Building Fortunes, we know how much your business means to you and the people important to you. So spread the word, tell a friend, join our newsletter, and go make a difference in your world. Now on to our show with your host, Peter Mingils.
Hello, everyone. Peter Mingils here. You're listening to us on Building Fortunes Radio. That's www.buildingfortunesradio.com. For those people that might be new and might be unfamiliar with my voice, my name is Peter Mingils. We run this whole Building Fortunes Radio show thing. We've had this for over 7 years, and we have all different types of radio shows on buildingfortunesradio.com. On Saturday nights at this time, 8:30 p.m. Eastern, if you're listening in live, I get a chance to have a radio show with a really great guy. His name is Scott Johnson. Scott and I met many years ago by coincidence based on a radio show that I did with a guy that doesn't like MLM. His name is Roger Van Vlissingen. Roger's a stock guy. When I say stock guy, he follows stocks and publicly traded stuff, and he was commenting on a website called seekingalpha.com. And his arguments, if you will, or criticism about network marketing were very academic, and they were really super smart, and I called them up because, most times in MLM, people that are in MLM, they poo-poo critics, like, oh, they don't understand the business and they don't know what they're talking about. And I'm like, no, that's not true. These people are pretty smart. They're good people. I mean, they have more facts than you do because you sit there quoting people that just don't make any sense. But anyway, so having said that, Scott and I had a great conversation because he called me up and he said, there's something that a lot of people miss, and that's called the MLM tool scam. I had an inkling of what he was talking about only because I had hired and fired myself in the wrong verbs over at Amway 3 times. And specifically, it was because of the tool scam that I quit, because I could see through it right away. I don't have like X-ray vision, so don't worry about that if we ever meet. But I saw it right away because of my background in direct sales and going to meetings and functions and having lots of things to compare it to, and maybe just the mindset that I had with the career that I was with. I saw it right away, and I just said, these people are making more on the tools, or they focus more on the tools and recruit than they ever are on product sales. But the compensation plan pays on product sales. How in the world are they making all this money? I just don't see it. Don't see it. Asked the first guy, he couldn't figure it out, I quit. Asked the second guy, he couldn't figure it out or tell me why, I quit. Third guy knew the answer, held back the answer. Once he told me they were making most of their money on the tools, I really quit. So that was it. 3 times was enough for me. I finally found somebody who was willing to tell me the truth behind the tool scam in Amway. So I said, I don't want to have anything to do with this. There's too many losers in the equation. So when Scott said that to me, I kind of knew what he was referencing, kind of. Then we started to speak, and I really liked the guy, and I still do, of course. And we said, let's do a radio show. And I said, Scott, I really don't know how much we're going to be able to talk about the tool scam on a radio show like weekly, but let's give it a whirl. And I didn't realize he was that knowledgeable about other things with MLM. So if you plug into the radio shows that we do and you listen to some of the other ones, we've covered lots of stuff. Tools, pyramids, Ponzi's, stuff that's inside and outside the industry. And this radio show is going to be really cool because it's developing a world that I wasn't paying much attention to, and that's the Hun bots. Like, I didn't even know what I know what a bot is because I'm a techie guy. I didn't know what a Hun bot is. I didn't know what a boss babe was. I could give you an idea. But when I joined the SNA, the Social Networking Association, as a board member, they do like social networking. So I had to start to go to social networks. One of my favorites is YouTube. So you type in MLM, you find anti-MLM, and oh my God, these young women, holy cow. It's like boss babes. That's not a nice word. Hunbot. Oh my God, holy cow. They're vicious. It's funny because they don't realize I'm watching. Like, they think they're talking to all these other girls, and I'm sitting there just like, wow, I'm entering their world. This is really kind of amazing. And we have one of them on our radio show tonight, which is really kind of cool. So a little bit of a longer introduction. I'm fascinated by the whole topic of the the gals who don't mind, no problem, we can kind of like tear into this, and they're really good at it, and they're very smart. And unfortunately for those people that are trying to pull over the tool scams, they're stripping you naked. They are just exposing you and all of the horrible things that you do. So I wanted to make sure that we had a great platform for that to continue to happen, because I really like the MLM industry. This is Peter. I like the MLM industry when it's done right, and it's horrible when it's done wrong, and that's one of the reasons why we do our radio show. So, Scott Johnson, thanks for being here. You have a couple of great websites, a little bit of a longer introduction, but I wanted to kind of set this up for our Building Fortunes radio listening audience as well. You've done some wonderful things for the radio show, as well as unbelievable guests, and I hope we have your guests back and other ones just like it coming in, because this is interesting, and for a lot of people, they may not see it. So over to you.
Yes, thanks, Peter. Thanks for having me again. I really appreciate it. Like we were talking about a little bit before the show with our guest, Sarah, this is kind of a weekly letting off of steam for me. So it's therapeutic. It's how I make it through the week. So this has been great. And by the way, what's your understanding of the Hun? What is your knowledge in that area? Because I have an opinion. I think it's accurate, but what's your understanding of Hun?
The way that Hun is kind of like that mom, if you will, who's kind of like obnoxious in a nice, like a not nice way, a nice way but not nice way. You know what I mean? Like she's a little bit overexcited. She's a little bit over the top relative to her home-based business. A little bit on the usually a younger side. Maybe between 20 and 40. Probably has kids, probably is a little bit obnoxiously engrossed in what she's doing, doesn't really know what she's doing, forces people to, plaster stuff all over social media. I mean, everything you'd probably consider a carnival barker in the MLM is usually my opinion of like a humbug. So, and probably completely ignorant to the idea that people like me can see right through them. And that really kind of people I want to hang out with mostly. At least,
Yeah, and I would agree with you for a Hun bot, but how about just the word Hun? Do you know where that comes from?
Oh, no, I don't remember where it started from, but I think Hun, I would probably use Hun and Hunbot probably in the same sentence, in the same context, which might be wrong, because this is why we're doing this radio show. I'm kind of getting educated on this whole boss baby Hunbot thing.
And maybe our guest Sarah can correct us, but my understanding of the word Hun, it's just like, two women talking to each other, they're probably friends. Hey, Hun, what you doing this weekend? Hey, Hun, I'm starting this business and blah, blah, blah. It's that kind of a, word that you use to just refer to somebody. Hey, Hun, that's my understanding anyway.
A little bit like dude. A little bit like
a dude. Just a Hun instead of a dude. So I guess you could call us dude bots when we were in Amway. But anyway, that's kind of neither here nor there. But we have a great guest. I've talked to her, I think, a couple times. One time probably longer than she wanted to talk to me, but once I get on a roll, it's hard for me to stop. And so what I want to do is first, like we normally do at the beginning of the show, is talk about how you do MLM right. Because I agree with you. I think it's one of the most creative, dynamic businesses ever created, as far as how it's structured and everything. The problem is almost all of them are doing it wrong, and no business is going to be perfect. But the two big things, the two big rocks, if you will, that get in the way of running a legitimate MLM business is, number one, that you mentioned, it's the tool scam. And not all MLMs have it, but the ones that do, like Amway, it's by far the biggest problem as far as I'm concerned, and most people don't even know about it. And that's the fact that the upper level of the distributors, I call them the scum, they make most of their money from the tools. And the tools are the meetings and the books and the recordings and the phone apps and the voicemail and the website access, all these different things that are designed to train and motivate, which, my opinion is that they do a pretty good job of that. Not that I agree with everything they say, but overall, I think it's good information. Now, they're lying through their teeth because they don't mention that most of their profit is coming from these tools. But as far as just the content of the tools, I'm okay with it. Now, the other big problem that I think is much more common in the MLM industry is the lack of retail sales. And we're talking about selling products or services, if you have a service MLM, to non-distributor customers. Okay, this is not your downline. This is someone that is not in the program, that can't sponsor anybody, that's not going to get a bonus, et cetera, et cetera. Those are called customers. And most MLMs have very few of those, and that's what makes them an illegal pyramid. If you go to the FTC.gov website, that's exactly what the FTC states, and they've won court cases, they've won settlements, several of these over the years, such that there's really no question what an illegal pyramid is. And a lot of people get that confused. They say, well, if we have products, it can't be an illegal pyramid, and that's not true. And the FTC has proven it again and again in court. So those are the two big things. And like I say, I'm not looking to perfect the MLM industry because no business is perfect. And if we got rid of these two big rocks, I think the MLM industry would be much, much better. Not that there aren't other ways that you can take advantage of people, but if those two things were cleaned up, I think we're 95 to 98% of the way to cleaning it up. So anyway, I just want to kind of give that little quick review that we normally do on this show, and then introduce Sarah, who, like I mentioned earlier, I've talked to, I think, a couple times, and certainly traded some texts and comments on her YouTube channel. But I wanted to introduce her. And Sarah, if you just want to, say hi and tell us a little bit about yourself, just, some background information, like, perhaps how you got started and what you were doing at the time and that sort of thing. Just go right ahead and we'll continue from there.
Definitely. Well, thank you so much for the opportunity to tell my story again. I am really passionate about getting this message out because I was in Amway for 2.5 years. I'm 24 years old now, but I had just turned 21 when I was recruited. I had just dropped out of college when someone actually reached out to me on LinkedIn with like this new business opportunity. And I had never been approached from like an MLM person or a Hun bot before. I love that you called me that, Peter. But yeah, so I just kind of went with their whole process. Honestly, what drew me to the business itself was the people in it. They seemed like really cool people, really family-oriented, great values, and, they spoke life into me. I had been really discouraged after dropping out of college, so they were the people to scoop me up and tell me that I had a purpose and that I could really do this thing and I could have a lot of success in network marketing. They never actually called it, multi-level marketing. But, so I got started with them. I was in it for 2.5 years. And, I was really disenchanted with it for about the last 2 years because they were really, showering me with love. I mean, in a cult-like sense, a lot of people call Amway a cult. So you could call that love bombing. For the first 6 months, but then it was 2 years of trying to make something work that just wasn't, purchasing all my products and reporting the customer volume as, whatever product I was purchasing, I was reporting it as customer volume because that's what they trained us to do. So I was draining my wallet. I was working like crazy hours and exhausting myself to the point where I started having some health issues. My upline had me sending my bank statements to them, and they had budgeted my income out to the point where I only had $30 a month of discretionary spending, and that was not enough money to pay for a copay to go, see a specialist and make sure that I was on the right, track health-wise. And so I told them that I needed to take a break, and their reaction was so negative. And basically short story, they basically told me I was going to hell for leaving. And so since then, I have connected with some people outside of the business who have previously left. They probably had quit before I did, and then I reached out to them and learned their stories, which is not something that I will make public until if they want to share their story, then I'm happy to, but I stick with my own information. But even the information that I learned from them, it has opened my eyes to see that I was not only being scammed, I was not only operating in an illegal pyramid, but the kind of culture that we were in as an MLM was very cult-like. So I guess that's my story in an abbreviated sense.
Little clarification here. So, like, I grew up in New York. So when you tell somebody, you're going to hell, it usually could be, you can throw in the F word or whatever. It's usually like, go take a hike kind of a thing. Were they talking in the biblical sense, like you're going to hell? Like, really? Like, not just not like just F off.
Of the people that I have talked to, I know when one person left, he was called Judas. When another person left, they said that she was demon possessed. So when I left, it was kind of, it followed suit. But basically, when I got into
you're
business,
like eternally damned. Like you're eternally damned.
Yeah, well, and it's kind of in a specific context because she didn't straight up say you're going to hell. But the context was when I had gotten into business, and they had a specific process because they wanted to vet people into their business and make sure that by the time you actually hear the name Amway, you have a friendship and a trust with the people who are recruiting you. So toward the last stages of the meetings to actually be invited to sign up under them, I looked my upline platinum in the eye and told him that if, I'm trusting him with everything that I have left. I was a receptionist at a car dealership at that time. I didn't have a lot of money anyway. So I'm trusting you with everything that I have left. And if you're just scamming me out of my money, like you're just lying me to scam me, there's a special place in hell for you. So then, which is not very ladylike of me to say, but, that was where I was at. And so when I left and I just said, I need to take a break. I didn't even say I was quitting. I just said, I need to take a couple months to get my finances in order. I have to go to the doctor. My upline platinum's wife said, well, the Holy Spirit reminded me as I was praying about our conversation today, that he reminded me that you had said that there's a special place in hell for people who don't follow through on what they say they're going to do. And I just find it interesting that that's what you're doing now.
So she really twisted around the words.
In essence, she basically told me I was going to hell.
Right. Wow.
Yeah. She twisted your words. In fact, that video is on your YouTube channel, and you have a recording of her voice, right?
Yes.
Oh, my gosh.
So you can hear that woman's voice on the phone because Sarah recorded it. So,
Sarah, have you tried to play it backwards? Have you tried to play that backwards?
It may as well be playing backwards. It's
You're right.
so messed up.
God. Oh, my God.
And I wanted to review one of the many things that I've talked to you about and seen on all of your videos, Sarah. Towards the beginning, you mentioned how you shifted the purchases from appearing to be a self-purchase into being a retail sale, and that really caught my eye because that's one of the things I was taught like 20 years ago. And, you know, the longer it goes between the time that I was taught these kinds of things and got out of Amway, then the more people are apt to say, well, gee, that was a long time ago. Things must have changed since then. And so stories like yours, I also heard it on Zay, Melody, and Seven's videos that they do. And I also heard it on another one recently. I can't remember the name of the couple, but all three said, yeah. And these were all recent people, you know, within the last year for sure, some of them within the last few months, saying, yeah, my upline just said take 50 of your PV and fake out the computer so that it thinks that it was a customer sale. And that's how they look to be legitimate from the outside. You know, if there was ever an FTC inspection, for example, then those retail sales would be there, even though they're totally fake. And that's one of the things that, you know, I didn't have an appreciation for the importance of that 20 years ago. I certainly do now. And that was just one of the things I wanted to backtrack a little bit on because it's still going on. And I don't know if you were taught that individually or in a group. Do you remember when you were taught that?
I can't remember. I can't remember if it was a group setting or personal. I remember I kept forgetting to report my customer volume, you know, and assign, oh yeah, no, I made a 50 PV sale.
Right.
But I remember my upline, you know, at the end of every month texting me, don't forget to report your customer volume. So I would imagine that was taught through the whole group.
For those of us that don't,
go ahead, Peter.
1 second, Scott. For those of us that don't know, who are you reporting this to? So
it's on the Amway website.
So you have to, like, when you're placing an order, or how is the reporting done?
Yeah, it's on the website, and as you know, because I had an independent business owner number, or you know, I would log in as my business account and report a sale on their website. So I just needed a first name, last name, an email or phone number, and then the number of volume, like the quantity of volume that I was reporting as a customer sale. And I just put that through, and it processes it within 2 minutes, and voila, I'm not operating in an illegal pyramid.
There we go.
And
wow. Okay.
And sir, did you use like a friend or relative, or did you just make up a number and a name?
No, I use myself. I use myself and a different email address.
Okay, well, there you go. I guess it worked.
I guess so.
It's been 20 years for me, so I don't recall, but I don't believe we had to furnish that much information. I think we just had to tick a box to say, you know, this is a designated retail sale. I don't think we had to do anything more than that. Yeah, that's interesting that happened that way. And certainly I was taught in a group setting, and one of the fundamental principles of any MLM is that of duplication. So I feel very comfortable in knowing that you were taught that many, many, many other people, you know, within your line of sponsorship were taught exactly the same thing. I'm sure your upline didn't call just you at the end of the month, you know, reminding only you to report that. So, yeah, there's really no doubt as far as that goes.
Was there something, besides being admonished by your upline, was there something that was negative that would happen if you didn't report that sale? Like, did you not get a commission?
Exactly. So as soon as you reach, there's different levels of compensation. So as soon as you reach 150 PV, I think that's point volume or point value. I don't know what the PV stands for. I forgot. But as soon as you reach 150 PV, you qualify for 3% of the business volume that goes through your business. So basically, for me, I was using it as a rebate program because I wasn't making customer sales, but if I didn't report any customer sales, then I wouldn't qualify for that 3% of my money back, basically.
Got it. So if you reported it, you got commissions back. If you didn't report it, you missed your commissions. So there was a
Correct.
financial incentive to make sure that you fudge the numbers, for lack of a better expression. You made sure you qualified.
That's exactly what it was.
Right.
Yep. That's why my upline was texting me, "Hey, remember to do this," because it didn't just affect them. It did affect, whether or not I got my $12 back or not.
Right. Now, did it affect them too? Like, was your upline also penalized if you forgot to check that box or stuff like that?
I don't know. My upline was
Okay.
incredibly secretive. I am learning more and more as I reconnect with people. But, yeah, I have no idea how they were affected.
Yeah, I believe the way it works, Peter, is it's just passed up. So if Sarah doesn't capture it, then it goes to the person above her.
Mm-hmm.
And if they did their 50 PV of retail sales, wink, wink, then they would capture it. And so that's my understanding. Now, Sarah, unless they've changed it, and I don't think they have, but again, I've been out for a while, the 3% starts at 100 PV, not 150. So they may have been telling you that just to get an extra 50 PV out of you. Have you seen anything like on the website or any other official document that would show that the minimum for the 3% is 150 and not 100?
Yeah, no, see, Scott, now I'm getting upset because, no, you're completely correct. Actually, it was 100 PV. I don't remember even looking at the website to see what the qualification was because I had it thoroughly drilled into my head that the team standard was 150 PV. So I know that there were certain people who were doing only 100 PV to reach the 3% mark, but everybody looked down on them because they weren't doing the full 150. And I actually don't really remember the compensation plan at this point, which is really strange because I sat through info sessions every single week for 2.5 years, and now I don't even remember the compensation plan. But yeah, I just remember it was a standard on the team. You were not serious about your business unless you were doing 150 PV, which equated to $450 at the wholesale value. But what my team did was, no, instead of paying $450, pay full retail price so that you can get the rebate back and it will go back into your business account so that your business account will automatically be able to be withdrawn from so you can pay for our tool subscriptions. So they had a whole system that they taught people.
Yeah, wait a minute. We have to unwind some of these numbers here because $100 or $150 is way different than $400 or somewhat dollars or more. So what was the average U.S. dollars, like out of pocket, that you were buying to be loyal to the team around? Did it wind up $400
a month?
$600 a month. 21-year-old kid working in a car dealership, right? $600 a month. No wonder you couldn't afford health insurance.
Right.
Now, let me just. Oh my God! All right, so around 600. Don't start crying on me. Don't start crying on me. Don't start crying on me, Sarah.
Peter, it's okay because they also were so nice to her. They said you can have $1 a day to spend any way you want.
I know, yeah.
$30 a month, that's $1 a day. So
Tell Sarah, based on your salary as a secretary at a car dealership, I'm surprised they didn't hire a stalker to make sure you didn't spend any more money on something else. But anyway, so $600. Let's just talk about that before we get to the tools. So $600 a month. They did get product. All right. So like a lot of people say, well, she did get hair shampoo and conditioner, whatever else she needed, and blah 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 blah. That's true. So there was some level of exchange there, but then you paid full retail price. So the other part, I had a slight stroke. So my brain overfroze. So you could do what? So you had to pay full retail from your own store, right?
Yeah.
Keep going. Help me walk through this. So then you could do what?
So that so a point value is $3 to every point. So if I were just to pay what a business owner in the Amway business would pay, a 150 point value order would be $450.
Right. Okay.
But so they wanted us to change that. Instead of paying business owner price, pay the full retail price. So that was $600 a month taken out of my bank account on the first of every single month on my Ditto order. So that now with the retail price, so
Ditto. What the hell is a Ditto? But we'll get to the Ditto thing.
Ditto, it's like a renewing order. So it's it's a subscription, or not a subscription, but what I'm
like
saying.
Yep, got it. Like the same one over and over again. That's why they call it Ditto. Okay, got it. All right. So then $600 a month coming out of your check.
Yes. So then they wanted me to open up, so I did. I opened a different bank account for my business funds so that every time they would pay out in the middle of the month, actually it was like the end of the week, they paid retail profits. So they were paying me, they were paying me back $150 into my business account, but they just wanted me to pay that $600 up front, so they knew that I was prioritizing my funds into my business rather than having to scramble for the money later on. So it would go back into my business account, and then from there I had an automatic subscription that would charge me the $90 a month for my tools, and then whatever was left in my business account was not to be touched, so that I could afford to pay for all of my conference tickets and my hotels and the gas and food for when we went to our quarterly conferences.
You know what? They are so IRS compliant, they're making you have a separate bank account. They don't want you, quote unquote, crossing your real money with your Amway money. So that's so good of them. That's so good of them.
So considerate.
They're so considerate. Oh my gosh. True business people. Make sure she has a separate business account she can't touch. Did they even give you access to it? Like, did you even have a username and a password that they monitor that too?
I mean, I may as well have just given it over to them, but no, I mean, they had extreme control.
By the way, I found that that's a common practice within the worldwide group, Worldwide Dream Builders, they call themselves, and also the LTD group, which I think is the one you were in, Sarah. Now, I was in the Jaeger group, and that's not a common practice. But, different groups do it different ways. This is like going to Walmart and, saying, hey, I'd like to pay an extra, 10% on all your products so you can mail me a check in a few days. That's how much sense it makes.
Exactly. It's a rebate program at that point.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. So you overpay so that you have some money set aside to buy their tools. Yeah. That's pretty devious, but hey, that's
pretty slick. Pretty slick if you wanted to do it. That's the way I do it too. Let's go. Come on, Sarah, let's go,
Right, exactly. Best practices.
Exactly. Yep.
Oh my God. All right. So,
and Sarah. Sarah, the LTD tool program, can you just describe that? I think you said $90 a month. What does that provide to you?
Well, that's the basic subscription. So they start new IBOs off, IBO, independent business owner. So they start new IBOs off with a deal where it's like you pay $60 a month for the first 6 months, and then it boosts up to $90 for the same subscription. So I was paying $90 a month to get, now they've changed it. Originally it was 5 audios, now it's 7 audios per month. And the audio recordings were just, you would redeem your credits to get an audio recording that you would download on an app through your phone. but that was really all the subscription covered. By being registered with LTD, Leadership Team Development, by being registered with them, I could purchase tickets for their conferences because I wasn't going to Amway, like general Amway conferences. It was Amway and LTD. So I would purchase my conference tickets through LTD's website. So basically I had an LTD ID number and I had access to their messaging app. So it's kind of their version of social media. You can send a message to whatever contacts you had added, and you could do like audio messages or video messages or just it's almost like a normal email. And you can send that to your upline. That's how we would. What was that?
Was that the Kate or Communicate system?
Yeah, it's a similar thing. So it was, I'm trying to remember. I think it's just called the LTD message app.
Okay.
But yeah, it's the same kind of communication.
Yep. How about, was there a book of the month?
Yes, they did. And that wasn't specific to LTD though. That was what my upline platinums did. So if ever you see my social media posts and I'm referring to the Free People of Chicago, that was what my platinums called their organization. That's mostly what I would refer to as the cult-like portion of my experience. But yeah, so that was more from my upline platinums for the book of the month. But I had to buy the book of the month through the LTD website because, you got to keep the money in the family.
Right. Now, but that was addition to the $90, right?
Yes. Yeah. That subscription did not pay for any book tools.
And you also got apps for that $90 a month to download the audios and so forth?
Correct. So I had a media app where I could download the audios and I could use the messaging app to message my upline or my downline.
And you were expected to report how often to your upline as far as what you did that previous time period?
Once daily.
Once a day. You're supposed to call in and let them know. Yep.
Yeah, so you're supposed to send a daily message, but then you're supposed to read all of the messages that are being forwarded from your upline down. So my upline would forward people's personal daily update down to their downline. So everybody was reading their messages, and then if they had downline, they had to forward every single message that came from their upline down to their downline. And then you were sending a daily message. So, I mean, a good portion of time was just spent checking that message app and, like, reading and forwarding emails, basically.
Right. Yeah, we had what was called Communicate. It was shortened to Kate as an abbreviation, and it was mostly voice-based, but it was the same thing. You got messages every day from your upline that you were expected to listen to and then pass into your downline. We didn't have to report in every day. That seems to be a quite extreme militaristic practice. So that's an interesting feature that LTD does, is that daily call-in. It reminds me, Peter, a little bit of the NXIVM story we've talked about from time to time. This is probably new to you, Sarah. There's a sex cult out there called NXIVM, and it's spelled NXIVM, and 6 people have been found guilty. They're about to be sentenced to prison for probably a lot of years each. And one of the practices they had was they had this slave-master relationship where you were supposed to call in to your master every morning when you woke up, and you're supposed to call into them right before you went to sleep. And then sometime during the night, they might call you, and you had to respond within 60 seconds, or else you were a bad boy or a bad girl. Actually, you were a bad girl because all the slaves were female. This sounds like it's made-up story, everything I'm telling you is court records. Okay, this is a real deal up in upstate New York is where it was based. But that's what reminds me of this is that daily call-in to this whole Nexium sex slave thing that was going on, just mind-boggling when you think about it that it was true. You know, you can make up a story that's fantastic, but this was actually true, as was yours.
Yeah, I have no problem believing that, actually. And honestly, I think that kind of control, not in that realm, purely business. But no, I remember basically having to be on call. You know, if your upline calls you, you answer, because, you know, you're supposed to be available to them. If they call you and ask you for a ride from the airport, that's your privilege. You get time with your upline. And, you know, every time I was invited to a meeting to drive down, so like we had our normal info sessions, or as WWD or Worldwide Dream Builders, it's like open meetings, I think is what they call them. So we had our weekly meetings on Tuesday, and then a training afterward. And then if they called what we called a night owl, which is just a late night meeting, most of the time it was like at a restaurant. If you were invited to those settings, it was expected. It was like a no-brainer that you would go. I mean, what an honor to be invited to their after meeting and then stay however late they stayed, which often was like 2 a.m. by the time that their meeting was finished. And this is on a weeknight. And then, you know, I'd drive back up to Wisconsin and, you know, be expected to be at work at 7 a.m. And, but their Sunday meetings were their network opportunities, network nights, where they would meet at a Panera or a Starbucks and make phone calls, like make cold calls to their friends. And if they invited you to that meeting, you were supposed to drop everything and go down to that meeting. I mean, otherwise you wouldn't be invited again and you would lose your mentorship. And, you know, mentorship was prioritized in this meeting. So there was a lot of fear behind, if I don't respond to them, if I don't show up where they asked me to show up, I won't be invited again, and I will lose the opportunity to actually work with someone who's successful in this business, and I'll be on my own, and I'll be, you know, working uphill without any help. So, you know, I would often not schedule anything on my weekends just in case I would be called, you know, 2 hours before a meeting and said, hey, get down here to Chicago, we're having a meeting. So, you know, obviously it wasn't in a sexual sense, but business-wise, yeah, they owned me. They owned my schedule, and they just had to say jump, and I'd ask how high.
Now, I want to jump in. I want to jump in for 1 second, because as I'm listening to this, first of all, I consider you, you know, a nice person, a smart person. You got your brain screwed on right, and then you're doing all this sort of stuff because I'm guessing you want to do whatever it takes to become successful. So
right.
You're basically like, just show me what to do, and I'll do whatever it takes, and I'll sacrifice and all that sort of stuff. So it reminds me of my direct sales days, because a lot of the things that you're talking about is what I would do with a new recruit in my management training program. Literally, it would be like, listen, if you need to make $3,000 at the end of this month, I can show you how, but I got to own you. Like, I got to own you. Like, when I'll tell you when you're waking up, I'll tell you when we're going to be at our first meeting, I'll tell you how many demos we have to do. I am the last person that you'll talk to before you put your head on your pillow tonight. You know, I'm going to make sure we're watching this. We'll figure out when we're going to do in personal time. I mean, it was total control. But
right.
Number one, I got their permission. Number two, there was a win at the end of the game. Like, there was a win. You know, in your instance, it's kind of like there's always a loser. Now, by the way, I don't know what kind of meetings they had, but what the hell kind of a meeting could you have that would be so life-changing? It wasn't like, oh, we have a new vaccine for coronavirus meeting. It was kind of like the same old thing. It was like the same old thing. Like, what are you going to talk about? Recruiting? What are we talking about? Your why? Again? Like, seriously? who are you going to quote one more time? You know, and by the way, I got to throw this in only for my daughter's purposes. So Scott would know this. This is kind of like an inside gig. My daughter, her name is Samantha. She's in the military. She just joined the Marines November 18th. She went in. At 8 o'clock this morning, she's at boot camp right now over in Paris Island. So at 8 o'clock this morning, she finished the Crucible. So the Crucible is like this 54-hour thing, 4 hours of sleep maybe twice a day, hardly any food, hardly any real sleep, in the cold, in the wet, in the whatever. You're pushing yourself as hard as you can be pushed. You have to make it as a team. It is exactly like a cult. I mean, it is mind control. It is physical. It is everything. It's perfect fitting for an example of what it's like when done right. You can drop out at any time. There's a win at the end. You become a Marine. You know, the few, the proud, if that's what you were looking for. But the bottom line was there's a winner at the end. They get the badge, they get the things, whatever, there's a winner. With the situations like you're talking about with Amway, it's the same mind control. It's the same activity control. It's the same mentorship. Could you imagine talking about to a drill sergeant? Could you imagine not being, you know, if the drill sergeant says, get over here, could you imagine even questioning that? It's the same mind control, right? It's the same mind control. The only difference is one is good. I gave you my direct sales mind control. They gave you just the military mind control. The Amway mind control is there's losers in the equation. And it's not like, oh, well, it was me. I'm the loser. How many people did you see win? The only people that you saw win were part of the tool scam. That's the only people you saw win. And that's what we're trying to expose here. Because you know what? So from what I heard about you, it sounded like you were willing to do whatever it took. Whatever it took. I'll sacrifice my money. I'll sacrifice my time. I'll sacrifice relationships. Hell, I'll even sacrifice my health. Like, at 21 years old, you were doing whatever it took. And then to be, what's the word? Abused? What's the word? Violated? What's the word? You know, it's horrible. And that's why we're doing this radio show. Because if you would have known that the end game would have been, you would be telling this story, you would have said, no, thank you. You know, like, leave that for somebody else, but not for me. No way. Like, at least you go in with your eyes wide open. So I didn't want to hog that part. But I just wanted to draw some of those comparisons, because some of those qualities and those traits are taken from people that get things done. The military, total mind control. Direct sales, sometimes total mind control. Going to meetings, total mind control. Activity reporting, mind control. Control. If you ask people that work for me, so listen, after you kiss if I was working with a guy, I would ask, who are you going to kiss goodnight? Then they would, my wife, or my husband, or whatever. When you're done doing that, call me. Tell me how your day was. We're going to discuss what's going on. We talk about the game plan. So it was control, but the reality was I got permission. If I owned you for this period of time, then this is what's going to happen, and I would shake on it. I would say, you know what? It was a two-way street, and this is the big difference. If it doesn't happen, I'll make it up to you. Like if you do all these things and you don't make the $3,000 that you need, I will cut you a check for the difference. And I know, I don't even have to ask this question. I know no one ever asked that. No one ever
cut me any check.
No.
Well, Peter, a couple things.
Yes.
Peter, a couple things. Number one, congratulations to your daughter. That is fantastic. That is incredible. Yeah, once you finish the Crucible, you're done. She's going to have her globe and anchor pinned on her pretty soon. I'm assuming you're going to go to the graduation. I don't know if you're able to do that, but
we are.
That's just going to be
Valentine's Day. We hope to grow.
that's going to be a tremendous experience for everybody. Her, you, the whole family, the friends, whatever. That is quite an accomplishment, and my hat's off to her. And you for hanging in there all this time, because we've talked about this. It hasn't been easy on Peter, Sarah. It has not been easy on him, but I'm just so delighted to hear that. I knew it was coming towards the end, but I didn't know exactly what her last day was. So, man, that's just incredible. Now, I would change the mind control slightly to behavior control. All those things you described, the person did use their mind to change their behavior, but it was their mind that was in control. You know, they decided, I am going to go in the Marines, and I'm going to decide to change my behavior and follow instructions, or I'm going to change my behavior and listen to Peter, make me $3,000 a month. And so I come at it a little bit differently as far as the terminology, let's say. And Sarah, question for you, because the way it was put to me was, you know, I wasn't asked, are you willing to do anything to succeed? The way it was put to me was, this is what I had to do. Now, this is like my upline platinum or emerald or diamond talking to me, you know, either individually in a group setting. They would say something to the effect of, this is what I did to get where I am. So if you want to get to where I am, this is what you have to do. Is that sort of along the lines of what you got from your upline?
Yeah, in the very first meeting, before I was even introduced, like in the first meeting where my sponsor sat down with me and we met each other for the first time, since it was a cold contact from LinkedIn, he asked me, I had no idea he was quoting a script. I thought we were just having a conversation. But he said one of his questions was, you know, if you had the opportunity to, you know, if you had to work and shovel what he said was horse manure into a wet paper bag for 5 years, but then you could live like whatever you wanted to live, like you could live the life you wanted, would you do that, or would you work 40 years in a job that, you know, you're frustrated at and you don't actually get the results you want? Like he posed that question to me. And in my mind, there really wasn't, I mean, all of their questions were phrased in such a way that there was really only one right answer from how they phrased it. So I said, well, yeah, I mean, I would do 5 years of really grueling work if I could, you know, have that lifestyle at the end. Yeah, no, that's a no-brainer for me. So that was kind of, I still remember my mom, I think my mom actually wrote me a little encouraging note, because she knew how drained, exhausted, frustrated I was at some point in my business, and she just said, you know, just keep shoveling horse manure. Like, that's how they phrased it. Yeah,
and I heard the same exact story, minus the paper bag. It was, you know, shoveling horse manure out of a stall. But, you know, would you do that for a short period of time versus what they call the 40-40-40 year plan? That's where, you know, you work 40 hours a week for 40 years, only to retire on 40% of what you were making. That's the 40-40-40 plan that they, you know, criticize, because the Amway plan is so much better. And you probably heard that 40-40-40, or maybe it's a 45 or 50-50-50 by now. I don't know. But, you know, that's again, common terminology that we heard, and you're telling the same stories that I heard 20 years ago, so the stories don't change either.
Yeah, so, they just get recycled.
And we touched on briefly before the call, one of the things you wanted to talk about is how they misuse religion, and that's one of my hot buttons too. So if you want to just kind of expand on that a little bit and talk a little bit about, you know, what you experienced, then we can kind of talk about that a little bit. Go right ahead.
Well, I think what really gets me frustrated, especially with this season that I'm coming out of, I mean, I'm out of Amway, but
I'm still, for my own personal mind and, my own personal theology, and for the friends who have left Amway, what's so difficult is to separate the truth from the lies, because, my upline specifically, and leadership team development, worldwide dream builders, they are a very heavily religiously influenced group. I know for LTD, they will do a weekend conference, but Sunday morning is their church service, and they always make reference to, the real reason why we do this is going to be coming on Sunday morning. And, so if you're not a Christian, or you've never been to a conference before, you don't really know what kind of thing they're talking about until you get there Sunday morning, and it's a straight up church service. And, I don't have any issues with them preaching the gospel. I wouldn't have any issues with anybody preaching the gospel. However, the fact that when I was recruited, the main thing was when they handed me the book called The Greatest Miracle in the World. And it talked about my identity as a human being created by God, and the miraculous gift that I can bring to the world with the fact that I'm alive and, can function. I have a purpose and can do great things. But it was framed within, you can do great things in Amway, but if you do anything else, you're basically wasting your life. I was actually just talking to someone that I had recruited in my business, and she texted me saying, like, I can't believe that I actually felt like God was disappointed in me when I quit Amway, because I thought that I had been convinced that this was God's will for my life, and I was giving up on God's plan for my life by dropping out of an MLM company. And, the fact that so many people, myself included, was, the Holy Spirit reminded me that you said something about people going to hell who don't follow through on their promises. It's not just, okay, well, if you're going to give up now and you're not going to achieve, the financial success you're looking for. No, they break it down to who you are as a person, who you are as a Christian, and what your life is going to be without this group. And so there's a lot of true things that they told me about myself. There's a lot of true things that they taught me about God. But it was all wrapped up in the lens of, this is all true because you're in Amway and you're selling Amway products. But as soon as you take a step out of that, well, you're demon possessed. You're Judas. You're out of the, we're a body of Christ until you leave the pyramid. You know what I mean?
Oh, exactly. Yeah. I mean, we had the same thing. I was under the Jaeger system, but it was the same thing. It was a very strong religious overtone, and I'm the same way you are. I'm a Christian, and I don't mind the gospel being preached. And before I found out about the scam, I really thought it was a great thing. And then when I found out about the tool scam, it all sort of came together to the point of, so you guys have actually been misusing religion all this time just to keep me in longer and make more money off of me. And that to me is just the most dastardly thing that I could imagine, because that they're lying through their teeth when they're up there talking about their lifestyle, and then they're lying by omission that most of that money to buy all that lifestyle, all those mansions and jets and yachts and motor coaches and everything else came from the tools. And that was never mentioned, that's where they made most of their money. And yet they pretend to be these, Christ-like people, and, just the most upright, upstanding person you can imagine. I mean, just the most perfect person possible on the planet. And in reality, they're the exact opposite, and they're misusing their religion in order to push that image forward. And I just found it to be totally disgusting. You experienced almost exactly what I did when I was, in fact, normally during those quarterly conferences, which typically started on a Friday night and they went all day Saturday, all night Saturday, and then the Sunday morning service. But during the Friday and Saturday time periods, they would give little hints along the way, just a very short, as they're talking about something motivational, they would say, now, make sure you come in Sunday morning because that's where the real message is going to come across. So they wouldn't really do a hard sell on the worship service, but they would leave little clues along the way, just to entice people to come. And that's at least that was the technique that they used in Jaeger. I don't know what they, did within LTD and Worldwide Dream Builders. Do you have any recollection of that?
Yeah, no, that sounds exactly the same. Because they would, they would drop little hints and say, oh well, and it was interesting because I'm pretty sure there are people who actually I remember my upline baptizing me in the basement of the hotel that we had our business meetings. So we would have our Tuesday night info session, the training, whatever, and then a smaller group of us went down to the basement hotel and actually got baptized by our upline platinum, which kind of makes the whole cult thing just sound even more wow. But yeah, so I remember that was
so. What were you thinking? Hold on a second, Sarah. What were you thinking when that was going on? Are you thinking this is a little strange, or were you okay, I can follow the flow? What was your mindset at that time? Were you being bullied?
Honestly, no. I actually was just really excited that I had found people who believed the same things I believed, who wanted to build life together, who wanted to, they always make their phrase is, we're going to live on the beaches of the world together or travel the beaches of the world together. So I was just excited by this prospect that I was with a group of people who actually seemed ideologically the same as I was. And, this was a community that I could grow myself in, use this as a personal growth opportunity while achieving, financial success and being able to, live without having to, report on a 9-to-5 job. And then the fact that they were so, seemingly Christ-based, I was really excited about that. And so now within the lens of a cult, or now from the outside looking in, those experiences have been entirely changed in my perception, because how much of a fraud my upline is. And like I said, I only really share my story until I get permission to share the stories of the other people who have left this same group. But what I have learned from those people is that it's not just good people doing a bad thing or doing a thing incorrectly. These people were frauds, straight up frauds. And, they would tout their Christian life on the outside, but, marriages were crumbling, things were happening. I crashed a car and couldn't tell anybody about it after, 5 feet to the right, and that car crash could have turned fatal. People's relatives were passing away, and no one was allowed to say anything because of the censorship within that group. And so now that I'm out and I can actually put the pieces of the puzzle together and know exactly who I was following, the perception is just entirely different. But at the time, I thought, I had just found a group of people that I was going to, grow old with and be best friends for life, Yeah,
and I was the same way, Peter. I was a true believer, for that first dozen years. I would have pretty much done anything. I don't think I would have done something illegal, but you never know. But as far as the dedication and all that kind of thing, you think you're following people that are who they claim to be. And, it was quite easy to follow people like that, like Sarah said, because of their values that were that I shared with them, it was quite easy to follow them. So, and that's the kind of people they're looking for, by the way, is people that do share those Christian values. That's one of the big hooks that they use to bring people in and keep people in. Because, again, you don't suspect somebody that's out there, pretending to be a Christian. And of course, you don't know that they're pretending at the time, but that's what they're doing. You just don't really even think too much about, gee, are these people scamming me? It just doesn't. It didn't occur to me. Put it that way. Like we've talked about before, when my upline, Diamond Bruce and Wendy Anderson, when they got kicked out, and that's a whole long story by itself. But he started a blog, and that's where I found out about the tool scam. And like Sarah related, my version of that is after I found out they were making all this money on tools, I just wrote a very simple email to my upline Platinum. I didn't complain about anything. I just said, please take me off standing order tools. And then it went dead silent. I mean, we were like best buddies, socially, business-wise, before that time. And then after that, I never heard from them again. I mean, literally, it went silent. Not that I was looking forward to talking to them, because I realized they had just scammed me, but that's what they do. They shut you out. It's almost like you're a cancer and they need to cut you out of the body. Now, it turns out they're really the cancer. But that's how they treat you, is like a cancer, and they give you the silent treatment. And just to go back, Sarah, these Sunday night meetings, these were your cold call telephone meetings, right?
Right.
Yeah. So Peter, when she said that meeting where they said come here, and you had to not plan anything on the weekends because you didn't know which weekend that you would get that call. Now, we didn't have formal meetings like that. It was more voluntary. Everything that Sarah's saying is pretty much my experience, but she turns it up a notch. LTD seems to be a little bit more extreme than what I experienced. But yeah, we would have calls from time to time where we had, 5 or 6 people. We always went to someone's house. We never went to a Starbucks or a Pantera to make those calls, but we would be sitting in a house, and we would typically make calls in series where one person would call somebody, and if they didn't get an answer, maybe the person wasn't home, that would go to the next person, and then if they called somebody, maybe they got turned down, and it would go to the next person, and maybe they got a more positive response, because typically our calls were we wanted to drop off some information. That was the nature of the call. That was about the only thing we said on the call was, hey, I just wanted to see if you were in tonight. I had some information to drop off with you. Is that okay? And a lot of people would say yes, if they knew you particularly, they would say yes. And then that would be the end of the call, and everybody would do high fives, and then it would go to the next person, and you would just go, round robin like that, for a couple hours. Sarah, I'm not sure what your exact methodology was, but that's kind of how we did it under the Jaeger system years ago.
Yeah, no, it's eerie how exact that is. That's exactly what we did.
Yeah, except you were in a restaurant and we were in someone's house. It was pretty much the same thing. And in fact, one night it was kind of funny. Me and my sponsor, I guess we weren't, listening to each other or something, and we both called the same guy, and we both dropped off. We both dropped off what we call ad packs, advertising packages, which included this will kind of date me here. I did say it was 20 years ago. So we would, drop off typically a VHS tape and probably a cassette tape and maybe a book that was in the little envelope that we would drop off on their porch. And one of us went there and dropped off our stuff, and then the second one went and dropped off our stuff and realized that both of us had contacted the same person in the same night. Right?
That never happened to me, but yeah.
That was kind of funny.
Our actual methods were also like, instead of just cold calling them, you set up a Facebook, message or something, and you have a conversation with them before you actually get on the phone, and then we would just explain the whole mentorship opportunity. We didn't actually name Amway until like as late as possible. We avoided trying to mention the name Amway, but that's where Hunbot and Boss Babe come from. It's the copy paste method of recruiting people on social media. So instead of actually putting their name like, hey, Peter, or, hey, Alyssa, you just copy and paste a message that says, hey, hun, like, just wanting to check in, see how you're doing, and I just have this awesome opportunity, So that's where the Hunbots come, and, yeah.
It's just kind of an
I never called anybody hun,
right?
but...
Yeah. It's just kind of an informal term of endearment, hey, hun.
Exactly.
That kind of a thing.
That nobody ever really uses in real life. That no one ever uses in real life unless you really know somebody. So
girls do that all the time. At least my girls within my age group, we do call each other hun and babe all the time, but, it's you can definitely tell when it's a generic message that's just copied and pasted.
Well, I do want to get into the whole social media thing, because that's how kind of like we started, and we developed this whole thing that we just went through with the Amway thing, which I thought was fascinating. But I'd love to have Sarah come back and kind of educate us more of what goes on online. So I know she's got a YouTube channel. So Sarah, how do people find you on YouTube?
You could just search Sarah Girl, and I'm the first profile that comes up. I have about 22 videos, but there's 7 videos relating to Amway. It's on a specific playlist, so you just have to search my name and go to my page and find my Amway content. I do suggest that if you're going to watch my whole story, start from the first video, because it is a chronological story.
Got it. And when you spell Sarah, is it with an H at the end of Sarah, or just S-A-R-A?
Yes, it's with an H, so SARAHGIRL.
Girl, just like you'd regular spell girl. So that's Sarah space girl. If you went to YouTube, you'd search it there, and then we'd find you.
Yes, and if you wanted to follow on Instagram, it's Sarah Girl Daily.
And I'm not an Instagram person. That's all squished together? That's like the username,
it's
Sarah
all
Girl Daily?
Lowercase.
Perfect.
Yep.
And I think you have that link on your YouTube channel, too, so you can get to Instagram from YouTube.
Yes, it's in all of my videos' descriptions, so you can easily find me.
Excellent.
Yep.
This is great information, Scott. I'm glad you brought Sarah. It was I don't want to say it was a fun call, because nothing about it was fun, but it was very interesting to see how this whole thing unfolds and how a scam is being perpetuated as far as the tools portion of the business. And it always baffles my mind that Amway, the corporation, allows this to happen. Like, I still don't get it. Like, I just don't get it.
And Peter, I would go beyond that. I would go beyond that. They not only allow it to happen, they are fully aware that it happens, because I know when Amway sued me about a decade ago, they were all over my website, finding little things that I said, that they didn't like. So I know that they know the whole story. In fact, we've talked about this before, that Rich DeVos, one of the 2 co-founders, made recording in 1983 complaining about the tool scam, and then he didn't do anything about it. So, now I'm not saying all Amway employees know all of this stuff, but I do know for certain that the top executives know. They have to know. The attorneys know, and if they don't report that to the executives, to me that's malpractice. And so people know. And we talked earlier too. I wanted to make this point. When we were talking about all these people are terrible people and all of that, it's really just that upper layer. It's generally the platinums and above. The other 99% of the people really don't know what's going on, and they really are most of them, I would say almost all of them, really good people, good, honest, decent people who think that they're pursuing a legitimate business, and they have no idea that they're involved in an illegal pyramid, and they have no idea they're involved in, again, I'm not a lawyer, but I believe that the tool scam is RICO fraud, and they just have no idea. They have no idea all this profit's being made from the tools. And so, again, it's just that top layer. We're not impugning all IBOs here. In fact, we're not impugning 99+% of them at all, because they don't even know what's going on as far as what's going wrong with the Amway business and other MLMs, by the way. But it's just that upper level there. That's all it is. But they're running everything. That's the problem. Like Sarah said, you do it my way or you're not going to be involved. That's just the way it is. And they keep a very tight control over those things. So I guess we should try to wrap up. Sarah, was there anything that you wanted to say in this call that we haven't covered?
Not particularly. I probably will. You guys have stirred up a lot of things that I will probably end up making YouTube videos on. But no, I just really appreciate the opportunity to come on here and share my story.
Yeah, and if we can have you back again in the future, like Peter said, because the one thing that I did not experience because it was so long ago was the whole social media thing. In fact, when I started the Amway in 1993, there wasn't even an internet, let alone social media. So it would be interesting to explore that a little bit more in a future show, just to see how they sort of incorporate that into the techniques and so forth, because obviously social media is a major ingredient in today's society. And I know that there's some groups that just heavily discourage any use of social media, and I think others use it to some extent. So that's something I would like to explore on a future show with you, because I think that's, something that has changed, just because, it's different. It's different in the world, not just within MLMs. All that stuff is, relatively new as far as being available. So
yeah.
I'll let that be my last statement. Sarah, if you want to say anything else, we'll just hand it back to Peter to wrap it up and talk again next week. I do want to say, Peter, that Sarah's just been fantastic. Everything that is going on now has been going on for decades, and we just confirmed all of that. And next week we have another guest. Her name is Alana, and her byline is actually, I can't remember if it's the anti-Hunbot or the former Hunbot, but that is her label on YouTube. And Peter, she actually interviewed Dave, who we had on the show a couple of weeks ago.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I saw a little bit of that when you sent me that link. What's interesting, and I'd love Sarah to be able to come back and kind of address this, because we're older guys, so this is we miss this whole generational thing. Is the new uprising anti-MLM young person phenomenon that's happening on YouTube and on other things like that. You guys, you young gals rather, are just a force to be reckoned with. They're smart, they're bright, they're not being negative, they're being sincerely, they're telling the truth the way they see it. They're appealing, but they're saying the things that people should be saying back, and they're really very good force, and they have a lot of following. So they are really, like I said, stripping people down from their scams, and that's just amazing to me. So I'd love to learn more about, Sarah, how you and other people that you're following and other things that you're witnessing as well, because it's definitely an upswell of anti-MLM done wrong stuff, which I applaud. It stinks because it might be alienating some people from doing MLM, but we don't want people to do MLM wrong. So I'll let you, Sarah, I think, Scott, we'll let Sarah kind of wrap this one up, and then just remind them where they can find you, Sarah, and then we'll have you come back for sure. So the next minute or two are yours.
Yeah, and
okay.
Sarah, before you do, Before you do finish, let me say something real quick. I totally agree with Peter what's going on in social media with all the YouTubers and Instagram and everything else. However, what we also need to do is convert all of that social media into written complaints, or I should say online complaints, to the ftc.gov website, because I think that's the real lever that we have to really cause change to happen, is to encourage all those people posting on YouTube and other social media and all the ones reading it and chiming in. Everybody that's aware and involved in this needs to go to ftc.gov and submit a complaint, because I believe that's how things will really happen. So I'll get off my little SAH soapbox and let you wrap it up, Sarah. Go right ahead.
No, I appreciate it, and I agree with you. It is, at a lot of times, it is despicable how certain MLM groups misuse technology, they misuse their relationships, and it is a pressing issue. I think I actually said that in one of my videos. You know, MLMers are out there right now, and they're looking for you. They're scouring the earth for who they're next going to devour, and it is urgent that we join together and we do make people aware of what these opportunities, quote unquote, actually are. So I do know, just from being on the inside, how technology has been misused. And I think, Scott, you were talking about a bit about, social media, but not just social media. It is, the phone recording apps, the ability to screenshot messages and send them to other people, where you're not even really necessarily talking to the person you think you're talking to. And the way that, that's how I got that recording of my upline telling me that, and that's how I got that on my video, was because they told me to record my phone calls. So I am very passionate about letting people know the full truth before they get into it. I do, on my videos, talk about MLMs, whether or not they're just a ripoff, a scam, a pyramid scheme, or a cult in the extreme cases. But I definitely think that the more you actually do your research, which they'll tell you not to research them, don't do any independent research, just believe what I'm telling you. Don't believe what they're telling you, because they will only give you the perspective that they want you to have. So, again, I will get off my soapbox now, but yeah, my YouTube channel is Sarah Girl, and my Instagram is Sarah Girl Daily. I don't actually claim to be an anti-MLM YouTube channel. That's not actually the majority of my content, but it's enough content because I'm passionate enough to let my social group and anybody else who will listen to me know that these things can really be dangerous if you let them. So that's my little speech there.
There we go. We gave you the last word. We're going to see everybody on Building Fortunes Radio. We'll put this up. I'll make sure Sarah Girl is in the title of the radio show on Building Fortunes Radio. We'll send Sarah a link for this as well. And thanks, everybody, for being here. Great information, Sarah. Thank you very much. And look forward to having you back. Scott, thanks. As usual, we'll see you next time.
You've been listening to Building Fortunes Radio on buildingfortunesradio.com. Thanks for listening.
Thank you.
Be sure to check us out every Friday at 5 p.m. Eastern Time for the designated Building Fortunes Radio segment with Peter Mingils. Be sure to check out the buildingfortunesradio.com website for our featured segments. It's been our privilege to have you listen in. At Building Fortunes Radio, we wish you the success you deserve and are willing to work for. So spread the word, tell a friend, join our newsletter, and go make a difference in your world.